iScience 10. In this video, we're going to look at the difference between plant and animal cells. I mean, ultimately, it boils down to, we're going to look at two organelles, which are quite different in plant cells. And I think, we can appreciate when we look at plants, they're quite green. And I wonder what would be the difference between plant and animals. So yeah, that's kind of a little hint about those two organelles. There's one that that is both plant and animal cells have that's much larger. Let's actually take a look. Just a little hint here. Again, make sure you've got your notebook out and taking notes along the way. That's a pickle. Of course, it was a cucumber, right? And so essentially it shrunk. It went into this salt solution. So essentially water was drawn out of it. There's a large central vacuole. We'll talk about that a little bit more in plant cells. So basically the water got sucked out. That's what salt literally does. It acts like a sponge. So this hypertonic solution, very salty, sucked the water out of that poor little cucumber. And yeah, we'll be looking at that. There's the other organelle that makes plants green, of course. A little windy here today. And talking about the organelle that's only in animal cells that allows for cell division to happen fairly easily in animal cells. And yeah, so let's get underway.
Yeah, so plant and animal cells. We've got a plant cell just over the shoulder, animal cell just over the shoulder. You can actually see some pretty significant differences in these images, but we just know some of those differences. Just think about wood. That's cellulose. That's the cell wall right there. Think about the fact that plants are green. Right above my head, we got the chloroplast. You can see the chloroplasts inside of the plant cell. The other big difference, animal cells have vacuoles as well. You can see one right there. But look at the size that they can get to in plant cells. Very large central vacuole. Think about what we do for plants. We water them a lot, and that's where the water and other nutrients are stored in vacuoles, but primarily in a plant it's going to be that. So yeah, so let's get going here. I'm going to share my screen. And want to make sure I've got my notes for you here. Because you can see the textbook page where you should be at. And again, the textbook is optional, but we're at about page 280. And of course, here we are in the plan. We're just finishing off cell organelle parts, so you can start that assignment after this lesson. Also, make sure to be doing the reading in the course readings as well, because there's questions in there that you'll need to answer as well. So there's questions in the readings, you watch the videos, you do the assignments. All right, let's begin. Let's talk about plant and animal cells. And yeah, this video we're going to look what cell organelles are unique to plants. We'll also talk about one called the centrioles found in animal cells that helps support cell division. But again, we can see those big differences between plant and animal cells. The green, that's going to be photosynthesis happening. That's the chloroplasts. That organelle is unique to plants. And think about that process of photosynthesis. Think about its purpose, of course, to produce oxygen and glucose for cellular respiration. Cellular respiration happens for both plants and animals, but just a lot more of cellular respiration in animals. It's definitely also happening in plants, but there's a ton more happening in animals because we're moving, because we're active. But photosynthesis is definitely totally unique. And what do cells do? They control chemistry. The organelles inside of cells help control chemistry, so it's going to be the chloroplast that's going to do that. And of course, cellular respiration, that's the mitochondria that does that. Found in both plant and animal cells, but much more prevalent in animal cells. Here's another big difference. Wood or cellulose, this is the cell wall. Animals do not have cell walls. We're not woody. Huge difference between plant and animal cells. Okay, let's do a quick little overview of each. We've done that already a bit here, but yeah, let's go to this slide right here. This is a great graphic. Essentially, you can see some of the similarities and differences. What I suggest you do right now is just pause the video and take note of all the similarities. I mean, obviously, some of the big ones, nucleus, right? The DNA, the plan. You got to have a plan. Cell has to have a plan. Mitochondria, energy, mitochondria. Hey, that's cellular respiration. Again, the big point, that chemical process is being controlled by both plant cells and animal cells. They need energy, got to recharge ATP. We got to produce proteins, so there's going to be rough endoplasmic reticulum, there's going to be ribosomes. We can see ribosomes, yeah, right in here. We see the little dots right there, the ribosomes are there on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So some of those big things. Again, big difference, no cell wall here in the animal cell, right? But there is a cell membrane, just kind of in here. Yep, there it is, the cell membrane. So it does have that similarity as well. All right, so why don't we start with, let's start with this large central vacuole. Let's start there. All right, well, first of all, a vacuole, it's a container, right? Again, taking notes along with me here. And as I speak, some of the key things that I'm telling you. It's a container, ultimately for water and some nutrients. Some key things that are going to be in here are going to be sugars, some salts as well, but mostly sugars in a plant. That helps draw the water in. Sugars and salts act like a sponge, and they can draw water. When water moves across a membrane, we call that osmosis. It's a form of diffusion. What's diffusion? Burn some toast. And the smoke or the smell of burnt toast will go throughout a house eventually, right, or an apartment, because it diffuses. It goes from an area of high concentration to low, so the water gets drawn from the outside here, gets sucked in through osmosis, moves across the cell wall through the cell membrane right into the vacuole. It's a great place to store it. I mean, water will also be in the cytoplasm here as well, but primarily the vacuole. Now it's also going to provide support for the plant. So let's take a look at this. And yeah, again, it's not found in bacteria, not found in animals, but is found in plants. A large central vacuole, right? That's the key difference. There are indeed vacuoles in animal cells. They're just not this large. But yeah, let's take a look at this whole idea of providing support for a plant. So this is called Turgor pressure. And just kind of note what's happening to the cell in each case. Take a look at the central vacuole. Take a look at what the plant would look like. This is all very familiar to us. And so what is Turgor pressure? Well, it's a pressure exerted by the vacuole basically on the cell wall here. And the Turgor pressure in this case is high. And the plant is, it's nice and supported, standing up good and straight. Turgor pressure here is low. Now, of course, it's probably just dried out. It's not necessarily been put in salt water, but indeed, if you put this plant in salt water, this is exactly what's going to happen to it. Remember that those salts or sugars also, they can draw water. They're like a sponge. So that salt, this could be salty or a hypertonic solution. Because if we say hypertonic, we mean a solution that's either got a lot of salt or a lot of sugar dissolved in it. So obviously outside of this plant, potentially anyway, there's a hypertonic solution, and the water is going out of the plant into the solution. It's being drawn. Again, remember when water moves? This is osmosis. Movement of water across a membrane. The word water actually means, the word osmo means water, so water movement. Another way that we refer to this, we call it the diffusion of water. And if you think about it, open a perfume bottle, right? And the smell will be highly concentrated in one area, but eventually it diffuses all throughout a house or room. Okay, so we've kind of seen and talked about the central vacuole. We've talked about this concept of Turgor pressure, which is really, really important. And we mentioned, and this is also super important, the process of osmosis, and that's the movement of water across a membrane. You know, in this case, the water is going out. In this case, water is being drawn in. And eventually it hits an equilibrium point, and there's more than enough water in there. So next, let's talk about that cell wall that the water is going across. Again, a big difference. It would be a very big difference. Well, it is wood, cellulose. Yeah, so the cell wall. So it provides protection and support. Again, maybe pause and take some of these notes on the screen here because you want to be writing, you want to be ingraining it into your brain. So protection and support, mainly made up of cellulose. It's more rigid and thicker than a cell membrane, so again, very rigid. The key thing about cellulose is fiber. Oh, okay. This process right here, which is going to look very familiar to you. We're going to combine this. And we're going to combine that. Plants only do this process. What's this process? It makes this stuff. Write it out with me here. Say the name of it. I'm just going to have to write it a bit sideways here. Sorry. What's this process? Photosynthesis. Okay. Why am I talking about photosynthesis? We're talking about the cell wall. The reason cellulose is actually built up from glucose. So the glucose right here, of course, this is photosynthesis, right? So the plant needs to make sugars because it's got to do some cellular respiration. It needs some energy. That's the purpose of the sugar there. And the beautiful thing for us, and again, thank a plant, that this sugar right here that the plant has made, we eat them, and that's where we get our main nutrient, other nutrients as well. But you know, without this glucose here, we can't do cellular respiration. Obviously, without oxygen, we can't do cellular respiration. So these are the two things required for cellular respiration. But here's the neat thing. This carbon compound, you can see C6, it's got 6 carbon atoms. This carbon compound, through other complicated reactions, this carbon compound can be made into cellulose, which is also a carbon compound. Now you're going to ask, well, what's the formula for cellulose? Well, it's literally thousands of carbons. Not just 1,000, but thousands of carbons, thousands and thousands of hydrogens. So I mean, it almost doesn't make any sense to write the formula for cellulose. It's going to be a lot of hydrogens, a lot of carbons bonded together times, you know, a number of some kind. The point is, and I could just draw a quick model of cellulose, a bunch of carbon atoms bonded together with, yeah, a little bit of hydrogen coming off the side. When we burn wood and paper, fire, right, it gives off CO2 and H2O. So that's pretty cool, right? When you burn something like cellulose, and we're all familiar with that, having a campfire, it's going to definitely release a lot of heat. So I wanted to point that out. We're burning this carbon compound through cellular respiration, or glucose. We can also burn cellulose. Cellulose is an incredibly important structure for plants. Again, can actually be found in some bacteria, but definitely not found in animals. How would that even be possible? All right, so we've looked at the cell wall. We've looked at the large central vacuole. Well, an even bigger difference, I mean, this is a pretty big difference, you know, the fact that we don't have any cell walls, any wood, any cellulose, but this is arguably another super big difference between plant and animals, maybe the biggest. The chloroplast, right? Photosynthesis. Now, we just wrote down the formula for photosynthesis, but pause the video and write out the formula again for photosynthesis. This is amazing. You're going to want to thank every plant you literally see, because the glucose that these chloroplasts help produce and the oxygen that they help produce, that's what's keeping us alive. The glucose you got to eat, the oxygen you got to breathe. Two things to stay alive, guys. Got to eat, got to breathe. Okay, so photosynthesis, plants take in, right? So that's going to come in through the leaf. This is going to come up through the roots, right? Water. Those two basic ingredients. Just going to give us a little bit more room here to write this chemical equation out. So we've got a couple products. These two reactants are combined. So cells control chemistry in this organelle, the chloroplast, with something called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll can capture the light energy because, yeah, you do need some sunlight energy. So you need to put energy in, and energy gets, converted from one form to another to chemical energy, to this chemical energy of glucose. That's what glucose is. It's chemical energy. You can burn glucose. Make some cookies and burn them, but don't do that because that's cruel to cookie kind. The other product of this reaction is O2 gas. Now the plant definitely needs that because it's going to be doing some cellular respiration, but we really need oxygen. Plants don't need as much as we do. This is what really plants need. They need a good source of carbon dioxide, good source of water. If they get enough, they'll have nice high Turgor pressure, and their central vacuoles are going to be nicely filled, and they're going to be able to get enough water into the cells, into the chloroplasts. Again, think of where these are. These are very tiny. They're inside of the cell, a plant cell only. Makes the plant cell green. This is why plant cells are green, right here, chlorophyll. And we can see that from space, right? Which is totally incredible, right? That we can see, again, I haven't been to space personally, but pictures from the Earth, from space, and we can see the green all across the planet, the chlorophyll all across the planet, the plants capturing sunlight energy, converting it to this chemical energy that all other life needs. That plants need it as well, but all other life, all the other animals, all of the other living things, animals particularly, are going to need access to this glucose and of course oxygen. Without oxygen, well, we'd be dead. Okay, so let's look at a quick summary here of the differences between plant and animals and quickly talk about where we should be in the course right now. Again, throughout these notes, be pausing and be writing down some of the key information that we've got posted on the screen. All right, here are the differences between plant and animal cells. Number one, plant cells have chloroplasts. Think of the process that they're running, right? Photosynthesis, nice chlorophyll inside of the chloroplast, capturing the sunlight energy, converting that sunlight energy into glucose. So number one. Number two, cell walls made of cellulose. Okay, so what would be the difference, right? So nice cellulose there. And they have a large central vacuole. You're going to watch a quick little video of an experiment you can do at home. That's going to be next. And you're going to want to do that. Do that today. You'll see the video next. Now, only found in animal cells, and I'm just quickly mentioning this, it is important for you to know, but centrioles, and basically they form little spindle fibers, little fibers, little wires that help separate our chromosomes during cell division. Remember, you got to have, new cells have to have chromosomes, have to have DNA, so it does make sense that there's some kind of process when a cell is dividing, so it's going to be turning into two cells here. As it starts to divide, there's a way to put one copy of the DNA over here and one copy of the DNA over there. So yeah, they're the DNA movers, as all those are. Oh yeah, and here's that experiment that you can do. I'll refer to it in a video next here. You're going to make a hypertonic solution and put a stick of celery into it, and have a hypotonic solution, just tap water, and stick another stick of celery in it. But yeah, you'll see that in the video. Where you want to be in the course right now, we've just looked and finished looking at cell organelles. So what makes life work? All of the cell organelles, you need to know those. Know the difference between plant and animal cells, specifically those organelles we looked at today. And you'll be able to do the parts of a cell assignment today. Finish the reading if you haven't on cell organelles, and there are the pages right there. If we've changed the page numbers, we'll scroll it across on the video. But yeah, let's quickly look at this experiment And we'll see you in 2 seconds at the experiment.
All right, to get a good sense of the central vacuole, we're going to do this little experiment. So you'll do this at home as well. What you're going to want to get is, oops, just have to turn my camera on. What you're going to want to get is a couple chunks of celery. Let them sit out for at least 24 hours. These two actually haven't, but let them sit out for 24 hours. 1 cup of water is going to be hypertonic with either salt or sugar, so you can choose. Dissolved in. I'm just going to put a little bit of this. It can be salt or sugar. Mix it around, make sure it gets good and dissolved. And 1 can just be tap water, so just straight tap water. That'll be hypotonic. What you're going to want to do is put 1 of the sticks of celery in the hypertonic, and 1 of the sticks of celery in the hypotonic, or basically just the tap water. And yeah, wait about 24, 48 hours, do some observations, see what happens when, again, those central vacuoles, they would, have water in them. And yeah, what happens in a hypertonic solution, what happens in a hypotonic. Cool. Take care.